He would be making up the front row. Grant Edcox and Ben Hess would be making up row number 2, as Keith Seegers and Rich Bickle Jr. would make up the 3rd row. They'd come down and anxiously await the start of the event. The battle of the sexes would be on in row number 1. The ARCA event was now under green, and Patty Moise was starting to pull away. The challenge was on as Tracy Leslie was moving in to contend when Grant Edcock could lose some ground to the outside of the racetrack. Tracy Leslie would move to the outside and now contend with Patty Moise. But Moise would try to hold it down and maintain the number 1 spot. Challenge was still on at the front of the field. Further back in rows of 2, the story was being told. Ben Hess had moved to the inside of Grant Edcox when suddenly Clifford Allison would get crossed up, come around, and tag the cement wall hard. Allison would start to correct and come back onto the racing surface itself. The field would scramble for position here. Then suddenly, Marvin Smith would be involved in the mix-up with car 21. Smith would try to come down as Patty Moise would manage to squeak by impressively on the bottom side of the racetrack. Clifford Allison's day would end at Daytona, but he would be taken to the local hospital and checked out and would be okay. Back down on pit road, Bobby Dotter would exit his ride and turn things over to his son as car number 8 would rejoin in the competition here. As Dotter would rejoin the field and start to get up to speed, suddenly a mix-up would occur. He would slam the wall and fire would erupt from beneath the automobile. Dotter was trying to bring the car down on the bottom side of the racetrack. With flames erupting inside the driver's compartment, Dotter would try to exit the machine while the car was still going in excess of 90 miles an hour. Dotter would then still try to remove himself from a car with flames in the cockpit of the automobile. Dotter, now out of the car himself, would try to get away as the car would still move away under its own power without a driver. Back down on pit road, the cars would start to head down pit road when suddenly Brian Ross would get crossed up, go out of shape on pit road, but somehow be able to pull in to his correct designated pit area. Back at the front of the field, Ben Hess is setting the pace as they come off the turn. Then suddenly, a little bit out of shape, Tracy Leslie goes around, tags Jimmy Spencer. Rich Bickle comes in and also makes contact with car number 65. Mickey Gibbs will ride the outside cement retaining wall with car number 49. Red Farmer is able to get away, but Jim Spencer's car is severely damaged, his first time ever in an ARCA event. Spencer will stop on pit road. The car has no windshield and severe damage to the body of the left side of the automobile. Back at the front of the field, Ben Hess is in command of the event. Patty Moise is running in second, and Ron Cooper is challenging. Then suddenly, at the end of pit road, Tom Usry is out of shape. He barrel rolls. The car literally explodes. Car number 70 goes over and over. Then suddenly, Kerry Bryant comes in and makes contact once again with car number 66. Bryant's car will coast off the racetrack, but all attention is now on the Usry machine. Tom Usry was taken to Halifax Hospital. As of Tuesday morning after surgery, he was considered still in critical condition. Back up front, dominating the racing action, Ben Hess would hold on to take down the victory. Ron Cooper would finish in second, and Brian Ross would be the surprise to finish. An indication of what was in store for the World Series at the New Smyrna Speedway. In rows of 2, they were set to go the distance once again. These were the modifieds. Over 30 assembled in the pit area. On the inside of the front row, Jim Zachariah would try to keep it nice and low, but Reggie Ruggiero would be the driving force at the front of the field. Ruggiero would set the pace. Then Jamie DeMato would move to the outside. Tom Baldwin would go to the outside of Jim Zachariah. Suddenly, Zachariah would come up, make contact with the wall, and so wouldn't Kerry Malone with car number 47. Caution came out on the racetrack. John Auer would also go spinning with car number 27. The field was now under a red flag situation, but back at green, it was Reggie Ruggiero in command. Jamie DeMato was right there on his back bumper, and Tom Baldwin was moving in. Mikey Winitska was setting in the 4th spot, but Reggie Ruggiero would be the winner in night number 1. Jamie DeMato would finish in the number 2 spot with Tom Baldwin in 3rd. Mikey Winitska was 4th, and John Redding would round out the top 5. The first night division, Teddy Christopher would get crossed up initially on the start with car number 7. Mad scramble for position here, but everyone would be okay. When Meserve would run to the outside as Rick Savory would work it down low with car number 9. Richie Savory was now setting the pace at the front of the field. When further back in the pack, Dan Meserve Jr. would have a problem and tag the wall with car number 1. Dan Meserve Sr. was putting some pressure, but Richie Savory would set the pace to secure the victory. Dan Meserve would finish in the number 2 spot, and Bob Santos Jr. would round out the top 3. Saturday night competition, Tim Conley in the modifieds on the inside of Mikey Winitska. The field would go to green impressively with a battle right at the front of the field, with Mikey Winitska in command of the event. Jamie the Jet Tomato would dive down low underneath Conley as Reggie Ruggiero was coming to life, and so wasn't Tom Baldwin with car number 7. Conley would be slightly off the pace. The Maxwell House machine, car number 42. Then suddenly a spin in the turn. Mickey Murillo would go around with car number 15. Caution would come out on the racetrack, but back at green, it was Mikey Winitsko setting the pace with car number 36. Down low was Jamie the Jet Tomato when John Redding and Tomato would come together. Involved in the mix-up was Reggie Ruggiero and Tom Baldwin. Baldwin would be forced to go to the pit area and would not rejoin the field, but Jamie Tomato would be able to resume. It was Mikey Winitsko in command as Tony Jankowiak was running in second with Dick Houlihan among the top 3 automobiles. Dick Trickle was coming on strong with car number 00 as Reggie Ruggiero was coming from the back of the pack to contend and flying with car number 44. It was still Mikey Winitsko setting the pace up front. Tony Jankowiak and Jamie Tomato were battling lap after lap just among the top 5 cars. But Mikey Winitsko would set in the winner's circle to hold off Reggie Ruggiero to take down the win. Finishing third was Jamie the Jet Tomato, followed by Tony Jankowiak and Chris Heyman. The challenge on the outside as the field would be set and go to green in the Pro 4 feature event. Suddenly a mix-up would occur. John would tag the wall with car number 8. Further back in the pack, a mad scramble here. Involved in this one would be several of the front-running teams. But George Savory would be the man at the front of the field with Ted Christopher challenging on the bottom side of the racetrack. Savory would set the groove off the turn as Stacy would move in with car 38. Then suddenly Christopher would tag the wall and slide down towards the center of the infield with car number 7. A caution would come out on the racetrack as Stacy's hopes of securing a victory would suddenly end with car 38. It would be George Savory to set the pace and dominate the racing action to the checker. Sunday night competition couldn't have proved to be any more competitive as Jamie the Jet Tomato would set the pace off turn number 4. Tom Baldwin, defending series champion, would challenge on the outside. Further back in the pack, John Redding and Tony Jankowiak were coming to life. But Baldwin would suddenly make a bold move to the outside of the racetrack. Tomato would try to keep it nice and low as Reggie Ruggiero would move in, making it a 3-car bid for the lead. Further back in the pack, Kerry Malone and Mikey Winitsko would come together. Malone would literally hand grenade and slam the wall hard with car number 47. Winitsko would be involved in the mix-up, and so would Dick Trickle with car number 0. John Redding and a group of other competitors would also be tangled in the mix-up in the melee. But Kerry Malone would be the car that suffered the most damage. Malone would be okay, but the 44 Racing Enterprises backup car would definitely be totaled in the event. Reggie Ruggiero was now setting the pace with car 44 when suddenly Rick Miller would get crossed up. Rick Patcham would be involved with car number 94. Teddy Christopher was involved, and so wasn't Robbie Clark with car number 71. There was wheels and debris all over the racetrack, but Reggie Ruggiero back at green would set the pace and take down the win. Finishing in second was Jamie Tomato over Tom Baldwin, Dick Trickle, and Frank Feature. Winitsko was starting to pull away at the front of the field when Tom and Junior Hanley and Butch Miller were battling it out. And in the mini-modified division, the Savorys and the Meservis seemed to be the driving force there. But right now, let's go see how they do in round number 2 for the remaining events on the side. While Trickle was challenging Tony Jankowiak for position number 1, it was Reggie Ruggiero to dive to the bottom side of the racetrack. The Teddy Bear Pool Shark Lounge number 44 was hitched up on the inside groove, and Ruggiero would quickly take over the number 1 spot. Jamie Tomato was following Mikey Winitsko to the front of the pack. As Reggie Ruggiero was out in front, Winitsko was running in second with Tomato glued to his back bumper. But Reggie Ruggiero would secure another victory at the New Smyrna Speedway. The late model division, Richie Savory would give Dad George Savory a run for position number 1. George Savory would work the outside groove and try to take over the number 1 spot, as Teddy Christopher would move in with car number 7. It would be Savory to set the pace, with Richie Savory down low. 3 wide off the turn, and Teddy Christopher would set in position number 1. Suddenly, Christopher would get crossed up and go around with car number 7. And back up front, George Savory would battle with Richie Savory. As George Savory would take down the win, Richie Savory in for second, with Stacy finishing in the 3rd spot. The modified feature event for Wednesday competition put Jamie Tomato to the inside of Buzzy Bazanson. Tomato would quickly take over the number 1 spot and start to pull away. Bazanson would set in second as Reggie Ruggiero would battle. Then suddenly a mix-up would occur down the front straightaway. Jim Zachariah would be involved, and so would John Redding Sr. with Jay Hedgecock's number 41. A mix-up initially on the start sent sparks flying as Tomato would develop a problem with car number 99. It was Reggie Ruggiero to set the pace at the front of the pack. Tom Baldwin was moving in, but Mikey Winitsko had already taken over position number 2. Baldwin would make contact. Winitsko would be able to hold on, but Reggie Ruggiero would secure the victory. Tom Baldwin would finish in the number 2 spot, and Mikey Winitsko would round out the top. While Richie Savory and Dan Meservi were battling for position number 2, but George Savory would hold on to take down the win. Richie Savory for second, and Dan Meservi to finish 3rd. Night number 7 in the World Series, it was Mikey Winitsko to set the pace, and the field would go to green at turn 1.
Reggie Ruggiero would try to run the inside groove as Jamie Tomato would be strong in the outside lane. Tom Baldwin would develop a problem with car number 7 and drop off the pace. But back at the front of the field, Mikey Winitsko was dirt tracking it off turn number 4. Ruggiero was contending in the bottom lane. Deep into turn number 1 and off the second turn, it was Ruggiero out in front. Iwanitsko would have to settle for second as Ruggiero was back in the winner's circle. Finishing in second was Mikey Winitsko over Jamie Tomato and George Savory to take over position number 1. Then Stacy would develop a problem. George Savory would take over the number 1 spot at Dan Meservey, and Dan Meservey Jr. would run 1, 2, and 3. It would be George Savory to take down the win. Dan Meservey Jr. would finish in the runner-up spot with Dan Meservey Sr. in the 3rd position. Mikey Winitsko and Reggie Ruggiero would give him a run for the money in Friday night competition. With Ruggiero dialed into the bottom, Iwanitsko would look strong on the outside groove. Down to the line they'd come pretty much evenly matched, with Ruggiero taking advantage of the inside lane to inch out in front and take over the number 1 spot. Tom Baldwin and Jamie Tomato were battling a little further back in the pack to contend as Tomato would work his way up to the number 2 position. It was Reggie Ruggiero to take down the win, Tomato for second, and Tom Baldwin to finish in the 3rd spot. It's the Richie Evans Memorial Event, 100 laps of racing excitement for the mighty Modifieds. Front row of the competition would be told when the field would go to green as Tom Baldwin would quickly jump out in front. Mikey Winitsko would run in second when Tomato would tangle with Dick Houlihan. Tomato would spin with car number 99. But back at the front of the field, it was still Tom Baldwin, Mikey Winitsko, and Reggie Ruggiero as the mighty three would battle lap after lap. John Auer would spin with car number 27 as the field would go back under caution. Reggie Ruggiero down on pit road. Tires would be the story here with a 4-tire change on car number 44. But Tom Baldwin would stay out on the racetrack. No tires for him, and he would set the pace at the front of the field. Ruggiero was closing up the gap as Mikey Winitsko was comfortably setting in position number 3. The top 3 under a blanket, but Baldwin would take down the win. Ruggiero in for second, and Mikey Winitsko would finish in 3rd. Tom Baldwin Savory was already working his way to the front of the pack. Sam Stern was coming on strong when Savory would go to the outside as Richie Savory would spin down low with car number 9. Back up front, LeMay had his hands full as Sam Stern would make it look so easy in the outside groove with car number 09. George Savory would try to keep it nice and low as the 3 cars would bid for position number 1. It was Sam Stern running on rails to take over the number 1 spot. George Savory would take over second, and Jeff Fuller would go to the outside of LeMay to try to pick up position number 3. The two would battle for a while, and Fuller would start to pull away. Middle of the pack, Dan Meservey Jr. was trying to come back to the front of the field, and so wasn't Richard Savory with car number 9. Dan Meservey Sr. was also having a tough go of it with car number 11A. But the leader of the field still remained Sam Stern. George Savory was really a man, but the checkerboard went to green. John Zaviso, winner of the opening night event, would be on the inside of 4-time champion Bob Povereri. Initially in the start, Zaviso would develop a push, and Povereri would take over the number 1 spot. Stan Greger had already worked his way into second. Greger would now dive to the inside to challenge for the lead. It was Stan Greger on the inside lane to take over position number 1. But Bob Povereri would fight back with the Riverdale Chrysler number 711. Front of the pack, Reggie Ruggiero was coming to life when Charlie Pastriak would cut a tire and go around with car number 5. Matt Scramble here. Ed Kennedy is involved, and so is Ricky Summers. John Cody with car number 21 and the 10A of Dan Avery. Pastriak would head to the pit area with a flat tire on car number 5. John Cody would also head to the pits, and so would John Zaviso with car number 01. Back up front, the green flag would wave, and Reggie Ruggiero and Bruce D'Alessandro were trying to work their way into contend among the top 5 cars. It was Ruggiero picking them off one at a time. Povereri would develop a little bit of a problem as Brian Schofield and Dan Avery would come together. They would gather it back nicely when Povereri would drop out of the event. Car number 711, once the leader of the event, had now fallen out. It was Reggie Ruggiero to challenge beneath Stan Greger to try to take over position number 1. Last week's feature event winner and defending champion Ruggiero would give him a run for the money to the inside. Contact would be made, but Ruggiero would stand on the throttle and take over the number 1 spot. It was Reggie Ruggiero now in command. Greger was now pressured heavily by Jerry Marquis. Marquis would make a move towards the inside, then look to the outside. It was a battle raging for second, with Marquis trying to run the bottom groove to take over the number 2 spot. But Greger was still having a problem with a push. He would try to maintain his spot as Reggie Ruggiero was now starting to pull away. It would be another easy victory for Reggie Ruggiero. Stan Greger would finish in second. Jerry Marquis would be third. Chris